Hey everyone, welcome back to another dev interview on our Aerosoft Move channel. I'm here today with Jens from Terabytes. Hi Jens,
Hi.
one of the developers of Zombie Cure Lab. And Zombie Cure Lab gets released on the 27th of May on Steam, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. And the community was already asking for another dev interview regarding Zombie Cure Lab. So Jens, how did the idea for Zombie Cure Lab come about?
That's an interesting question because it wasn't like, oh, let's make a base building game or something like that. It was more like we actually wanted to make an science application that was also part of the Zombie QLab game when it launched. And in the early stages, we were thinking to have more combined application for the game and the science part. And then we thought like, what game could we make out of this that still has the science topic? And then, scientists doing something with a zombie virus is very scientific-y. and then and then we came the idea that scientists could heal zombies, basically. And from there it started, kind of.
Oh, cool. And what were the biggest challenges during the development stage?
Several, but in general, to develop this kind of genre, a strategy game, is a bit difficult because it can take a very long time during games production until you have something playable that you can evaluate. So you are constantly in the production of the game thinking like, is it good what we are making? Does it turn out well? And you constantly have to wait for this moment when the game just happens and is there, and it makes it very difficult to judge your own decisions if they are good. And else, in general, to continue with evaluating the game constantly and making the right calls, what it needs the most.
Another question is what sets Zombie Cure Lab apart from other base building games with a zombie theme?
Mainly that you are capturing your enemies, the zombies, and are trying to not harm them and actually heal them. And this makes a very interesting gameplay turn that you turn your enemies into workers and need them to restore the world from zombieism and make them human again. So this felt like a very unique mix, actually.
Yeah, true. It is. Is there a particular gameplay mechanic you're especially proud of?
Yeah, well, it's more like a mix of mechanics that work well together. I like the economy part of Zombie Tulip. Buildings have resource processors, and resources are actually being carried around. Um, and I think it can create a very addictive flow of constantly growing while defending against zombies and making meaningful decisions in what to invest next. And so I think like the game manages to grasp a larger part of its players that play a lot of time and spend a lot of time, and it shows kind of that the tech tree and progression system can work really well that you want to continue to play.
How did you approach balancing construction, defense, and research?
I mean, basically creating a tech tree in Excel was like over 120 technologies with the upgrades of buildings and equipment. And you start out with a theoretical concept, and as I said, Excel and table. And I tried also already build there the whole experience in the tech tree, like why do I need which resources when, and what challenges does this create? And from there, then transfer this into game, and then constantly adjust and adapt to something like that. And this can be, for example, the main storage 2 upgrade costs a lot of lumber, and this means the player has to somehow understand the concept of Humvees being better at gathering lumber, because only then you can have enough lumber for the upgrade to the next tech tier. And all these thoughts influence how the tech tree is built and create a basis for the balancing. But after that, more like watch people playing and read what players talk about the game and tweak the balancing and adjust, and maybe also do some bigger overhauls, but not affect the bases too much anymore.
I also heard that there's been boss zombies introduced. So
Yeah.
how do they change the dynamic compared to regular waves?
The boss zombie is only in the higher difficulties of the game, and it has a melee area of effect damage. So already like 2 days ahead, you get a warning that a boss will appear. So you have time to prepare because he's very tanky and a lot of defense, and you need to stock up on ammunition. And it can be very rewarding when you then finally freeze him in a big chunk of ice. But if he hits your defenses, he can like destroy multiple gates at once, and this is a common strategy of players to like have layers of gates, and he's kind of the counter to that.
Another new feature is like that you added a road system for workers. I wonder how this affects the gameplay efficiency and planning. I mean, I can imagine, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's very typical, like in other base building games, that if you place roads, they increase the movement speed of the workers walking over them. So it's optional. It means you only place them if you want to have a movement speed. And movement speed usually means that resources get carried more quicker between buildings. And I usually use the roads you can place to resource camps outside of your base, that the long distances have roads and become a bit faster. I feel like that helps me most, and else it's also decorative. Like if you want to have like a concrete floor, you basically can place it with the tier 3 road.
The balancing has been fine-tuned across the tech tree. What was most important to you during this overhaul, and what changes will players notice most?
Yeah, we did several things regarding the balancing. I mean, the biggest chunk we reworked was the whole zombie wave spawning and defense, and even the economy. A lot of things changed regarding the zombie health and how much damage the towers do. And the overall goal were like 2 things that we achieved with that. One thing is the onboarding. It was always a big problem that the game can be very overwhelming in the first stages. Like you have to know already a lot, and you can die easily if you didn't make it to the next tier level. And this got easier regarding from the balancing, and a bit faster to get to the second tech tier, because from the second tech tier the game opens up a bit more. And else was more like fine-tuning of the tech tree, that you can progress a bit faster through the whole tech tier. And specific things like I think the metal production became a bit faster because it was requested by a lot of players. A lot of players struggled with metal production with 3rd tier or something like that. So yeah.
Something also really cool that I saw is restored cities. So there's like this new endgame system where you send cured humans to restored cities. And and there's also some perks that influence future runs, right? Can you explain that or elaborate that
sure.
for us?
Yeah, this was a feature that was very important to me, because it always lacked an end game, and this tries to introduce exactly that. So from the general gameplay, you cure zombies to Humvees, and then with the next treatment to the next Humvee, and this Humvee to the next Humvee, and finally he becomes a cured human. And the cured humans you can send away via a helicopter, and you basically send them away to repopulate the destroyed world from the zombie apocalypse. And the feature specifically means that on the world map, before you start a new mission, you see these destroyed cities on the world map, and you see how many cured humans you send away. And each destroyed city requires a specific amount of cured humans to unlock the perk or just restore the city. And then you get this healthy restored city on the world map with some fireworks effect, I think. And it has a specific perk, like 10% faster metal production, or Humvees require less meat to eat. And it's a permanent perk, so if you have unlocked it and start a new mission, this new mission will have these perks active, and it gets faster to reach the cured human stages, and you get faster to cure more humans. So it accelerates this whole process of restoring the world map.
Many features like trading, the build menu, and room drawing were reworked. What prompted these changes?
Specifically with the building menu and the room drawing. In the early stages, the room drawing was a bit hidden in the build menu. Felt like it's a very different tool and it needs its own menu. And so we are split everything. It was more about general layouting and general placing of objects. And the layout menu, you now have the room drawing, fence drawing, power pole drawing, road drawing. It just made more sense to split this and also just highlight that the features exist, because sometimes you just didn't find it. This was very important. With the trading specifically, we changed that you now get a specific trading resource when you send workers away, and you can use that to get the resources you want. Before, it was like you can get free resources, and it just didn't feel very meaningful for the gameplay. And now it's like you really try to get currency for trading, and then you can get lots of metal, and it affects the strategies you actually how do you play the game with trading.
Yeah, we've been talking already about the urban, about the cities, but the new post-apocalyptic urban setting gives the game a different tone. And what inspired this direction?
Mine is very simple. It felt always like the post-apocalyptic setting was missing. The Zombie QLab mostly played in some Canadian outskirts with some forest and some destroyed car wrecks, and else you didn't feel like you were in a post-apocalyptic setting. So we added some urban area with a lot of destroyed houses and parking lots and whatnot, and collapsed bridges. And it felt like it helped the game to give a bit more immersion to that there are zombies and everything's destroyed.
There are 3 handcrafted tutorial missions, right?
Yes.
To aim to improve onboarding. What was your focus when you designed them?
Very simply put, to explain the whole game, because the tutorial that we had before didn't do that. It only explained like 50% what was in the game, and people or players didn't realize that there's lots of screens and things for more deeper management. And we also mainly wanted to help players get into the game, because it's always very important for a base building game. And we have some tools that are a bit more complicated or harder to grasp. And when this was mixed with bugs and stuff, then the tutorial sometimes performed very badly. So with these 3 tutorials, we focused on explaining different aspects and having more time for the player to deal with the game systems, and also just take in the UI. I mean, if you open a game with lots of UI, there's buttons all around the screen, and then you're just overwhelmed. And so you need to take your time and get adjusted.
Yeah, the new mission setup screen is also a topic. You also mentioned you can show it to us, right? It allows for fine-tuned custom difficulty. How much can players now adjust their experience?
Completely. This was also very important and highly requested for different reasons. But now, if you start a new mission, I think it's called an expedition with north, west, south, east, even as modifiers, what you then can choose a custom preset difficulty like relaxed, builder, and survivor. And this just sets the sliders to a preset. And you can anytime then modify all the sliders, like map size, small or big. Do you start with a fence around? How much starting resources you have? So if you don't feel like you want a challenge, you can just put all the starting resources to 10,000 and more, and play a very pre-game, so to say. But we also added lots of sliders for like the zombie damage, how quickly your workers get hungry, how fast your production generates resources, because it was also a big topic that players sometimes the game was too difficult or they had a hard time to get into it, and it's important for such games that you can define your difficulty very freely.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes total sense. There also is like a revamped UI, which now supports gamepad input. How important is the controller support on PC?
Specifically on PC, I mean, I have to be honest, when I started researching strategy and base building games playing with gamepad or controller, I felt like it's a stupid idea to do something like that. But I played a lot of games like, I know, 8000 and Jurassic World Evolution, or it's called, and they played quite well on the gamepad actually. Even if especially if you don't have so much stress, then it's fine.
Yeah, but if you have stress, yeah.
Yeah, then it's a bit harder sometimes, but you can include systems that help to make it still easier to navigate.
Yeah.
And for the PC, you actually can just plug in any gamepad you have, and then it just changes the whole UI, and you can instantly start playing with the gamepad. Also, we invested lots of effort that different gamepads are supported and tested. Like it shows different icons of the PlayStation or Xbox controller and stuff like that. Yeah, so turned out quite well. We also quite well, I think, and we also added some systems like that you can, when you have selected a building like a resource camp, and you have multiple resource camps, you can just press the shoulder buttons and it jumps to the next resource camp. So you can easily navigate over a large map and don't have to use the stick so much to hover over the whole, scroll over the whole screen.
Okay, sounds interesting. Also haven't played a game like that with a controller yet. I know from the Zombie QLab time that there were always a lot of playtests. Zombie QLab was always a lot of playtesting. How did players react to the game now during playtests?
It's very different. I mean, in general, the feedback was always very good. I felt like a lot of players really liked the game. The main problem usually was that a lot of players struggled with getting into the game, with using some of the tools. They were sometimes a bit too complicated or not intuitive enough, and this can be a huge problem for base building games. And also bugs were also a problem, like if you have unintuitive tools and bugs, and then you sometimes don't understand what's going on anymore.
Yeah, totally.
So this just created the key areas that we tried to improve and work on mostly. And else, there were also very deep discussions sometimes about gameplay, about balancing, and it helped a lot to have constant feedback from a few players that play the game a lot and know like, okay, they really understand the design, or they really like that we added this and that.
Were there any like features or changes that came directly from community feedback?
Definitely. I have one in mind. I think the frozen zombie storage was born out of the community. So in the beginning, you could freeze zombies and then just stand there in place. And over time, we added like buildings where they then are transported to, and that's like a freezer room essentially for frozen zombies. But I can't remember all. It's like one fuzzy thing in total, like this constant discussions and stuff. But I know that a lot of influence came from what were discussed with this
Funny
community.
that the frozen zombie storage room was born in the community. Funny. I didn't even know.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't one of my ideas. I just knew we had to do something with the frozen zombies, but I didn't know what.
Sure. Yeah, okay, Jens. That's it from my side. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add?
Oh, I hope that people have a lot of fun with Zombie Collab now, and that it's finally a bug-free and very playable game.
Awesome. Oh, great job. I'm looking forward to play it myself, as I've played Zombie Lab also for a long time.
Cool. Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. And for those of you who are watching our interview until now, I'll post all the links below, like the Discord from Zombie Lab, all the socials, where we are like in the following days posting a lot of reels and videos about the game, which will give you a good insight on what to expect. So stay tuned, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.
All right.